Now we will discuss Marquard's method. This method is a combination of Cauchy's steepest descent method and Newton's method. When we use Cauchy's steepest descent method, we find that this particular method works well when the initial point is far from the minimum point. It is because when we find the gradient of the function, it will drastically reduce our objective function value. When we are close to the optimum solution, the change in the slope or the gradient is small, and therefore the Cauchy's steepest descent method sometimes will become slower when it is near to the minimum point. However, Newton methods works well when the initial point is near to the minimum point. It is because in its direction we have Hessian matrix along with the gradient of the function. So in this Hessian matrix will become positive definite or closed or reaching towards the when we are reaching towards the minimum point. So this Hessian matrix will become positive definite. This helps the Newton method to converge to the optimum solution quickly. So how we can include these two methods? We have a direction Sk that we are making. So you can see a matrix and we are taking an inverse. So minus sign. So it is quite similar to our previous method, that is Newton's method, in which we take a inverse of the Hessian matrix. So instead of that, now we have Hessian matrix represented by Hk plus lambda times of k. So lambda is going to be a scalar value, some real number we use it, which is multiplied with the identity matrix I. So altogether, we make a one matrix, we take a inverse of it. And this particular matrix will be multiplied with the gradient of the function. So this direction has a significance. Now, if you look at this equation, if we keep a large value of a lambda, meaning that the contribution of lambda I will be higher or more as compared to the Hessian of the matrix. This means that the matrix, the overall matrix, and when we are taking an inverse, so this will behave like an identity matrix. And since it is going to be identity matrix or similar to identity matrix, the direction Sk will become the minus times of gradient of the function, meaning the larger value of a lambda makes the direction similar to the steepest descent direction, right? So here you can see that the Hessian has a little effect on the determination of the such direction. Therefore, our effective direction is similar to the steepest descent. Now let us look the formula again. If lambda value is small, this means the Hessian has more contribution than the lambda I part. So the whole matrix will be behaving like a inverse of the Hessian matrix. So overall direction Sk will become the direction of Newton search method. Now here this method is computationally expensive, as we have found with the Newton method, because we are finding the Hessian and finally we are making an inverse of this particular matrix. So this method is always computationally expensive. Let us see how this method works. So step one is we have to start with the initial guess x0. Then we decide how many iterations, so maximum number of iteration, parameter epsilon for terminating this algorithm. We set our iteration counter k equals to 0 and a large value of a lambda, which is in the 0th iteration. So lambda 0 is 10 to the power 4. In step 2, we calculate the gradient of the function at the point, and then in step 3, we find the norm of this function. Since if this norm is going to be smaller than or equal to epsilon, we should terminate. Or the number of iterations reaches to its maximum number, then we should terminate. So any of the conditions satisfy, we should terminate. If not, then we should go to the step number 4. Now step number 4 is the same as what we are observing till now, that we calculate the direction at a current point xk, which is as the same formula we discussed in the previous slide. So we have a matrix combination of Hessian plus lambda times of identity matrix, take an inverse multiplied by the gradient of the function. Once we find it out, we can find a new point as xk plus 1 is equals to xk, which is our current point, plus the direction which we calculated. Just here you can observe that we are not performing any unidirectional search. So there is no alpha or a lambda here. It's only because we want to save some computation. But there are in the literature, there are some books where they also perform, they suggest to perform the unidirectional search. So that can be included easily here. As of now, we are not performing any unidirectional search. So alpha is not here in xk plus 1 formula. Now come to step number 5. Once we calculate the function value at the new point, we compare with the function value at the previous point. If it is smaller, this means that we are going in the right direction. So if yes, we go to step 6. Step 6 says that we should reduce the value of a lambda by 2. And then we increase the counter by 1. So k equals to k plus 1. And then we move to step number 2. If suppose in step 5, the function value at the new point xk plus 1 is greater than the function value of the current point, then we should increase the value. Why? Because the direction sk, which we found at step 4, is not good. Therefore, we should increase the value of a lambda in step 7. As you can see, lambda k plus 1 equals to 2 times of lambda k. Why we are doing? Because we want the contribution of identity matrix should be large as compared to the Hessian, so that this particular method will behave exactly as steepest descent. So that's why we increase it. But in this case, we go to step number 4. Since the direction sk is not good, we directly jump to again find the direction with the increased value of a lambda k, and then we find a sk, and then similarly the new point. We will be doing till our step number 5, function value at xk plus 1 is smaller than xk. So in this particular method, you can see in step 6 and 7, the lambda value either we are reducing by 2 if we are moving in the right direction or a good direction. If not, we are increasing it. At step 6, it is important to note that once it is done, we are moving to the step 2. Why? Because we have to find the gradient of the function, check the termination condition, and then find the direction in step number 4. Now let us use this algorithm or a method for performing hand calculation. So same Hamel-Blau function is written, and x1 and x2 are lying between 0 to 5. So in a step 1 of this method, we choose the value of m, the initial guess x0, epsilon value, putting k equals to 0, and a large value of a lambda. Currently we have taken say 100. In step 2, we find the gradient of the function after, so this value you can see here, and in step 3, we find the norm of the gradient of the function at x0. Now, without calculating this, because this particular value in step 3, we have already calculated in steepest descent method as well as with the Newton's method. So those values we can use here. So we know that this value is already larger than epsilon value, and k is also smaller than m. We are going to proceed to the step number 4. Step number 4 is again finding the direction. So we start with computing the Hessian matrix. So h of 0 means we are finding the gradient of the function at x0. So this matrix we will get it. After getting this matrix, we will be fitting into our formula of S0. So here you can see now on the right hand side, you can see minus time Hessian matrix plus 100 times of identity matrix, and the whole matrix we are going to find an inverse, and that is multiplied by the gradient of the matrix. So here I'm writing as a column vector, and in step 2, if I'm writing T, this means it's a transpose. So this is also a column vector here. Now by putting the values here, so we can calculate this. We can find a point x1, which is x0 plus s0. So we'll get this value. So you perform hand calculations and make sure that you are getting the same value. Thereafter, we compute the function value at the new point, which is x1, which is 157.79. The function value at x0 is 170. Since the function value at x1 is better than the function value at x0, we move to the step 6, meaning that the direction which we have found is the correct direction. So in that case, we should reduce the value of lambda. So in this case, lambda 1 will become lambda 0 divided by 2. So we reduce by 2, it will become 50. Increase, we set the k as equals to k plus 1, and we go to the step 2. And here the iteration number 1 is over. Now we'll move to the step number 2. This is step number 2. Again, we find the gradient of the function at x1. The value is given on the right hand side in step 2. Thereafter, we check the norm of the gradient of the function at the point x1, and we look both the termination condition. Now, since both the termination conditions are not satisfied, we move to step number 4. Now, the step 4, which I have showed you in the previous slide, or if we follow all those steps, we will get the direction S1 as 2.980 and 2.046. This particular direction we can take here, and we will get point x2 as x2 is equals to x1 plus s1. So we'll get the direction x2 as given here. And if we calculate the function value, it is going to be 0.33. Now, since this particular point, you can see 2.980 and 2.0046, it is already close to 3 and a 2. Therefore, the function value is going to be small. In step 5, we compute the function value at x1, which is 157.79, and the function value at the x0, 170. Looking at these two values, we know the function value at x1 is better than x0. So we are going to move to the step number 6. Since the direction we found is good, in which the function value is improving, so we are going to reduce the value of lambda. So lambda 1 will become lambda 0 divided by 2. So it is coming out to be 50. So here we increase the counter k by 1. So we'll get k1, and we go to the step number 2. So that completes our first iteration. So in step number 2, again, as we know, we have to find the gradient of the function at x1. So the value is given on the right hand side. At step number 3, we look both the termination conditions. that is the norm of the gradient of the function as well as the number of iterations. Once we are done and we know that these values are, so the termination condition is not satisfied, we will move to step number 4. In step 4, in the previous slide, I showed you the calculations for finding the conjugate gradient, which was S0. Now, the same calculation if you follow here, so you will get S1, which is the number it is given, 2.738 and 1.749. The new point x2 we can find as, which is x1 plus s1. So we get a point here, 2.980 and 2.046, and the function value at x2 is 0.33. Now the function value is already is very close. It is only because you can see the point is 2.980 and 2.046. It is already close to our 0.32. Thereafter, we again move to step number 5, and we can observe the function value at x2 is better than x1. So I'm going to the previous slide. So the function value at x2 is better than function value of x1. You can see here. So we will move to step 6. Since the direction is good again, so we will reduce the value of a lambda 2. So it says that lambda 2 equals to lambda 1 divided by 2, so 25. In step 6, again, we increase the k by 1, so it is second iteration, and we will move to step 2. So the second iteration is over by this time. Now, if we are going to perform one more iteration, the point x3 you can observe is 2.994, 2.005. So this point is already close to our optimal point, which is 3.2, and that's why the function value is quite small, which is 0.001. Again, as a remark, this method is expensive because we have to find the Hessian and its inverse. So therefore, the overall Marquardt method is computationally expensive method. Let us see the graphical example of the same two iterations here. So we started with the origin and moving in the direction of, say, S1. So we get a point x1. After finding that, again, we have to move in the direction of S1. And then in the second plot on the right hand side, you can see the point x2 is already close to the minimum point. And in a few more iterations, we can locate the minima for this particular problem. Come to the last method in the gradient based methods, that is conjugate gradient method. This method is similar to the conjugate direction because the direction which we will be moving, that direction is a conjugate to the previous direction. So the similar property will be held by conjugate gradient method. Now here, instead of, so what we have found that the Newton method as well as Marquardt method, we have to find the Hessian of the matrix and inverse it. In this case, conjugate gradient method will find the search direction in such a way just by using the first order derivative. So we are not going to use or need the double, so the Hessian of the matrix, for example, gradient of the function. So those derivatives, we don't need it. First order derivative will help us to locate the optimum solution. This method was suggested by Fletcher and Reeve in 1964, and they come up with the formula as you can see here, and it was proved that the direction SK is conjugate to all previous such directions SI. What are those I? Means all previous direction we started with 1, 2 till k minus 1. And that is the same property which was used with the conjugate direction method earlier. So what this formula says that we will find a direction SK equals to minus times of the gradient of the function. So at the current point, we will be moving in this direction plus. So we are adding some small terms here. So denominator will be the norm and we are going to take a square. So L2 norm and n square divided by the L2 norm at the previous point square. So this numerator divided by denominator is going to give us some factor or some number. And that number will be multiplied by the previous direction, which is sk minus 1. In this, when we use conjugate gradient method, the first direction is always the gradient. It is always is the steepest descent method. Steepest descent direction method. So S0 is minus times of gradient of the function. An important property or the advantage of conjugate gradient method is if we are minimizing a linear or a quadratic function. So in 2 iterations, they can find, so this method can find the minimum of the function. So let us see how this method works. So in step 1, we choose the initial guess, the termination condition. So there are going to be multiple termination conditions, and therefore we need epsilon 1, epsilon 2, and epsilon 3. The iteration counter k equals to 0 and maximum allowed iteration capital M. In step 2, we find the gradient of the function at the current point and take this particular gradient as this steepest descent gradient will become our direction S0. In step 3, we perform unidirectional search. So you have done this unidirectional search with the steepest descent methods earlier. So we will be performing the unidirectional search from point x0 in the direction of S0, and the lambda is the scaling factor. So you know that by doing this unidirectional search, we will be converting this multi-variable problem into single variable, and we can find what is lambda star. And we can use any of those methods which we have learned in single variable optimization. So this particular, when we are performing the unidirectional search, it is going to terminate based on the epsilon 1 value. As soon as we get what is the optimal value of a lambda, we are going to put into the formula here, and we can get the first point x1. So here you can see x1 is equals to x0 plus lambda star. So it's an optimal value. We found it using single variable optimization method and multiplied this with the S0. Till now we take this k equals to 1, means first iteration is already over. And then we calculate the gradient of the function. In step 4, we find the direction sk, which is conjugate direction, with the formula which we have discussed in the previous slide. As soon as we get the sk, in step 5, we have to again perform the unidirectional search. So here you can see that we are going to perform a unidirectional search from sk, xk in a direction of sk, and then lambda will be our scaling factor. So since we are performing unidirectional search, we can use any of the single variable optimization technique here to find what is the value of a lambda star. Putting that value, I can get xk plus 1. You can see in this slide. Here, one check has been included, that we have to see whether the direction sk and the previous direction sk plus 1, they are linearly independent or not. So basically, we are going to find angle between these two vectors. If they are very small, this means they are linearly dependent, and that we don't want. In step 6, there are other termination conditions. So first termination condition is with respect to our previous point, what is the difference between the new point minus the current point? If it is going to be smaller than epsilon 2, we should stop it. Or the gradient of the function at the new point is smaller than epsilon 3, we should terminate it. If not, we increase the counter of iteration k equal to k plus 1, and we move to step 4, meaning we are going to again find the another conjugate direction. Now, as I have mentioned earlier, in between, we always check the linear independence of the search directions. So in this case, we will be finding the angle between the two consecutive search directions, SK and SK minus 1. So if we find the angle between them, basically we can use the dot product and find the cos theta here. If suppose they are going to be linearly dependent, then we have to restart. So we can restart. So the current point will become our x0 point, and then we have to follow all the steps starting from step 1. Let us see how this conjugate gradient method works. So we will be solving the same Hamel-Blau function, and the range of x1 and x2 is lying between 0 and 5. So we are again choosing the 0 and 0, the origin point, the various values of epsilons here, and k equal to 0. Here you can assume the capital M is say 100. Then in step 2, first direction is the steepest descent direction, and we get the value here. Thereafter, in step 3, we perform unidirectional search along S0 from X0. So those calculations are not shown because we did it in the steepest descent method and earlier methods. So we know how to perform unidirectional search. So we need single variable optimization methods to find the value of a lambda star. Putting this lambda star into the formula of x1 equals to x0 plus lambda star s0 is going to give me 1.788 2.810 transpose. We set k equal to 1 here, and then we compute the gradient of the function at the new point. At this particular point, we are going to find the conjugate direction S1 with respect to S0. So the same formula is written here, and we are finding the minus times of the gradient of the function at x1 and the numerator and the denominator and S0. So by putting these values, you can see the column vector plus the square of the L2 norm is written here, and then the S0 direction. So we'll get S1 as this particular value. So this direction, since the vector is known to us, we will be changing into the unit vector along S1. Here, it is important to note that the direction, since we are performing unidirectional search, this method as well as in the previous methods, as and when we have to perform unidirectional search, we have to first convert our direction into a unit vector, and then we use this unidirectional search. Now, afterwards, once we have found this direction S1, you remember that we have to find whether they are linearly dependent or independent. So direction S0 and S1 we can find as the dot product. So cos theta we can find, it is coming out to be 35.6. Since this value is quite large, so we can say that both of them are linearly independent. Afterwards, we are going to perform another unidirectional search along S1 from X1. So we again use our single variable optimization techniques here to find the value of a lambda star. Putting into the formula, we can get x2 as 2.260, 2.988, and the transpose of this. Step 6 is always our termination condition. We check our termination condition here. When you put the value, you will realize that the first termination condition is not satisfied. Similarly, the second termination condition is not satisfied. So increase k by 1. So we'll get k equals to 2. And we move to the step 4. And at this stage, the iteration number 1 is over. Now step 4, we know that this is where we calculate the conjugate direction. So S2 is going to be conjugate direction to all previous direction. This means S2 will be conjugate to S1 as well as S0. By putting the values in the formula, so here numerator divided by denominator, I have written the direct value as 1.757 multiplied by S0, we get this value. Now when we get this value, again we are finding S2 as our unit vector. Now there are two differences you can see here. When I'm finding the value of S2, we are putting the values of the vector as it is. So here we are not including the unit vector S1. You can see 57.399, 23.142. Similarly, the gradient of the function. But the unit vector we are calculating here, it's only because we want to first find the angle, and second, we want to perform unidirectional search. Right, so now we will check the independence, linearly independence between the two vectors, finding the cos theta, which is coming out to be 23.7. Now, since this value is quite large, we can say that both the directions S2 and S1. So there is a mistake here, S2 and S1 here, and then there is no angle. So this is another mistake. Since the angle is not close, S2 and S1 are not linearly dependent. So this is small change, you make a note here. In step 5, we are again going to perform a unidirectional search along S2 from X2, and the single variable optimization techniques will help us to find the value of lambda star, and we can get a value X3 as 2.708. 2.974 and the transpose of it. Step 6 involves checking the termination conditions. Here we have written directly that both the conditions are not satisfied. We are increasing k by 1, so k equals to 3. We move to step 4 and the second iteration is over. Now suppose if we are going to follow these steps one by one, so we'll get say point X4 and the fitness value is 18.082. And if we keep on continuing after 9 iterations or at the 9th point, our function value is always improving, but it is not still reached to the optimum solution. So let's do one thing, that let us restart from the point X3. So in that case, the X0 will become X3. Now you can see on the top at step number 5, X3 value is taken as X0. And then we have to perform all these steps starting from step 1 to step 6. What you will realize that the new point is 2.992, 2.072, and the function value is 0.082. As you can see from this vector of X2, this vector is already close to 3 and a 2. And we can say this after restart, the value or the vector which we get, it is already better than X9, where in the previous as compared to our previous calculations. Let us look at the graphical example. So we started from the origin X0. We perform in the minus times of gradient of the function, we get X1. Then we find conjugate direction S1, get the point X2. Thereafter, from X2, we have another direction S2, and then we get a point X3. Similarly, if we are going to make it, so we'll get X1, X2, X3, and X9. So in between middle points, I'm not showing in the curve. I'm just showing that X4 to X9. So all the points are lying in between. So you can see it's kind of a it is making a circular motion, and it is making a circular motion, and then finally it will converge to the optimum solution. So which is quite slow. As we know that if we perform the restart, so in the restart we took the X3 point as our initial point. So if we do the restart, you can see the reflected point, say we have written it as a XR is the restart point, and 4 we have given because we are starting from 3. So you can see the point is already very close to the optimum solution. So sometimes this restart helps the conjugate gradient method even other methods as well to converge to the optimum solution quickly. So we can have this restart option with our gradient based methods as and when needed. Now let us conclude this chapter. In this chapter, we started with the optimality condition for multivariable. So we have sufficient condition as well as we have necessary condition as well as sufficient condition. Using Taylor series function, we proved how we get the stationary point, and then we have to check the Hessian of the matrix to find whether it is positive definite, negative definite, or something else, so that we can say that the point, stationary point, is a minima, maxima, or inflection point. Thereafter, we have gone through two methods in direct search methods, simplex search method and conjugate direction methods. Both methods are quite famous, and conjugate direction method is one of the famous methods in the direct search method category. Here you have realized that we don't need any derivative. With the help of objective function values, we find and or locate the optimum solution. Then we move to the gradient based methods where we find the descent direction based on first and second order of a derivative, and we perform the unidirectional search along that descent direction. In this category, we have gone through steepest descent, Newton's methods, Marquard's method, and conjugate gradient methods. Newton's steepest descent method only need gradient of the function information. Newton and Marquard method need Hessian and its inverse information for finding the direction sk. However, the conjugate gradient method only need first order of derivative. We understood all these methods with the help of hand calculations and as well as graphical. So after understanding all these methods with the help of those algorithmic representation, step 1, step 2, step 3, we did perform the same steps using the calculations, and the graphical illustration help us to understand how the point is moving from one to the another while improving the objective function value. With this, I'm concluding this chapter on multivariable optimization.